Imagine a world where power is absolute and loyalty is a currency more valuable than gold. Welcome to the story of Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson, the man who would become known as the godfather of Harlem. For over 3 decades, this enigmatic figure ruled Harlem's underworld with an iron fist, defying both the Italian Mafia and law enforcement. Today, we'll peel back the layers of myth and legend to reveal the fascinating truth behind one of America's most notorious and complex criminal masterminds. Bumpy Johnson's life reads like a Hollywood blockbuster filled with high-stakes power plays, brutal violence, and unexpected acts of generosity. From his humble beginnings in the segregated South to his rise as the undisputed king of Harlem's criminal empire, we'll uncover how this brilliant strategist navigated the treacherous waters of organized crime while simultaneously becoming a Robin Hood-like figure to his community. But Bumpy's story is more than just a tale of crime and punishment. It's a window into the racial tensions, economic disparities, and social upheavals that shaped 20th century America. By understanding his life, we gain invaluable insight into a pivotal era of American history and the ongoing struggle for equality and opportunity. So buckle up and prepare for a journey into the heart of Harlem's underworld. This is the story of Bumpy Johnson, gangster, strategist, and unlikely community hero. It's a reflection of the racial tensions, economic disparities, and social upheavals that shaped 20th century America. By understanding his life, we gain insight into a pivotal era of American history and the ongoing struggle for equality and opportunity. On October 31st, 1905, in the heart of Charleston, South Carolina, Ellsworth Raymond Johnson, later known as Bumpy, entered a world steeped in racial tension and societal divisions. From his earliest days, young Bumpy faced the harsh realities of life in the segregated South, where skin color often dictated one's future. Despite these challenges, the Johnson family, though of modest means, commanded respect within their close-knit community, instilling in Bumpy a sense of pride and resilience that would shape his character for years to come. However, the stifling atmosphere of racial discrimination and lack of opportunities for African Americans in Charleston would soon set Bumpy on an unexpected path. The limitations imposed by the segregated South, combined with his innate intelligence and ambition, created a potent mix of frustration and determination in the young man, laying the groundwork for his future endeavors. In 1919, a pivotal moment altered the course of Bumpy's life forever. At just 14, he found himself at the center of a family crisis. His older brother stood accused of a grave offense, killing a white man, a charge that, in the racially charged climate of the time, carried potentially deadly consequences for the entire Johnson family. Faced with this dire situation, Bumpy's father made an agonizing decision that would resonate for years. He sent his young son away from the only home he had ever known. With a mixture of trepidation and excitement, Bumpy boarded a train bound for Harlem, New York, where he was to live with his sister. This journey, spanning hundreds of miles, proved to be more than just a physical relocation. It was a transition that would set the stage for Bumpy's transformation from a Southern youth to a formidable figure in the criminal underworld. Upon his arrival in Harlem, Bumpy found himself thrust into a world both familiar and utterly foreign. The neighborhood pulsed with an energy unlike anything he had experienced in Charleston. Harlem, in the late 1910s and early 1920s, was on the cusp of a cultural explosion, soon to be known as the Harlem Renaissance. The The streets teemed with artists, writers, musicians, and intellectuals, all contributing to a vibrant tapestry of African-American culture and creativity. Yet, beneath this veneer of cultural richness, Harlem harbored its own set of challenges. Economic opportunities for African Americans, while more diverse than in the South, remained severely limited. Many residents, struggling to make ends meet in a society still riddled with racial prejudice, turned to alternative means of survival. The allure of quick money through illegal activities proved irresistible to many, including the young and impressionable Bumpy. It was in this complex, multifaceted environment that Bumpy Johnson began to forge his identity. The streets of Harlem became his classroom, teaching him lessons in survival, strategy, and power that no formal education could provide. These formative years in Harlem laid the foundation for Bumpy's eventual rise as a criminal mastermind, blending the resilience he learned in the South with the street smarts he honed in the urban jungle of New York. Bumpy's initiation into Harlem's street life was a baptism by fire, setting the stage for his future as a formidable figure in the neighborhood's underworld. On his first day of school, a seemingly innocuous encounter with local boys playing dice quickly spiraled into a defining moment that would shape his reputation for years to come. Tension filled the air as one of the boys, a notorious tough known as William, approached Bumpy with unmistakable hostility. "You're gonna wish you'd never set foot here," William snarled, his voice dripping with menace. "If I have to teach you a lesson, you won't soon forget it." The other boys, sensing the impending clash, circled around, their excitement growing as they placed bets on the outcome. Despite his small stature and newcomer status, Bumpy stood his ground, his eyes blazing with fierce determination. As William launched a vicious attack, Bumpy's quick reflexes kicked in. He deftly sidestepped the blow and countered with a lightning-fast strike, catching his opponent off guard. What followed was a brutal and bloody exchange, with both combatants trading punishing blows. When the dust settled, Bumpy emerged victorious, standing tall over his fallen adversary. This violent altercation, shocking in its intensity, forged Bumpy's reputation. In mere minutes, he had transformed from an unknown outsider to a force to be reckoned with, earning the grudging respect of his peers and cementing his place in Harlem's unforgiving street hierarchy. Whispers spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. "Did you hear about the new kid? Took down William on his first day." Bumpy's victory over a known tough guy sent a clear message. Despite his youth and newcomer status, he was not to be underestimated. This reputation would serve as the foundation for Bumpy's future empire, a testament to the power of first impressions in Harlem's unforgiving streets. After his initial confrontation, Bumpy quickly adapted to Harlem's harsh street life. He formed a close bond with a group of local youths, Nath, Finley, and Johnny, who would become his lifelong confidants and trusted lieutenants. This band of brothers, united by shared experiences and an understanding of Harlem's unforgiving landscape, progressed from petty misdemeanors to more sophisticated criminal activities. Their exploits ranged from running numbers for local betting rings to executing small-scale robberies, each venture serving as a crucial step in their criminal education. During this formative period, Bumpy's exceptional talents caught the eye of Stephanie Sinclair, a legendary figure in Harlem's underworld known as Madam Queen. Sinclair, a woman of formidable intellect and ruthless ambition, had established a significant presence in Harlem's criminal ecosystem, controlling much of the illegal lottery business, the numbers racket. This illicit enterprise, which exploited the hopes of Harlem's impoverished residents, required both street savvy and business acumen to operate successfully. In Bumpy, Sinclair saw a kindred spirit, a diamond in the rough with raw intelligence and the street smarts needed to thrive in their dangerous world. Impressed by his quick wit, loyalty, and natural leadership, she decided to mentor the young Bumpy. This partnership would prove pivotal, as Sinclair schooled him in the intricacies of organized crime. Under her guidance, Bumpy received a comprehensive education in the criminal underworld, from the complex logistics of running numbers to the delicate art of managing relationships with corrupt officials and rival gangs. This apprenticeship, under one of Harlem's most notorious figures, laid the foundation for Bumpy's eventual rise to the top of the neighborhood's criminal hierarchy. Under Sinclair's expert guidance, Bumpy delved deep into the intricate world of the numbers racket, a clandestine lottery system that had taken root in Harlem's bustling streets. This illicit enterprise, while legally dubious, had become a cornerstone of the neighborhood's underground economy, offering a tantalizing glimmer of hope to those trapped in the cycle of poverty. With remarkable acumen, Bumpy swiftly mastered the multifaceted nature of the operation, from the delicate art of soliciting and collecting bets to the complex logistics of managing payouts and the crucial skill of evading the ever-watchful eye of law enforcement. Sinclair, a shrewd judge of character, found herself increasingly impressed by Bumpy's razor-sharp intellect and unwavering loyalty. His ability to quickly grasp and navigate the complex web of relationships and transactions that underpinned the numbers game set him apart from his peers. "That boy," she once observed to her inner circle, her voice tinged with a mixture of pride and admiration. "He's got more brains than the whole lot of them put together. It's like his mind was built for this game." She paused, a knowing smile playing at the corners of her mouth. All he needed was the right hand to guide him, to show him how to channel that raw talent, that boundless energy in the right direction. And now, mark my words, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with in this town. Bumpy Johnson's ascent to power in Harlem's criminal underworld reached a critical juncture in the early 1930s when Dutch Schultz, a notorious and ruthless mobster from the Bronx, set his sights on Harlem's thriving numbers racket. Schultz, renowned for his brutal tactics and insatiable ambition, viewed Harlem as an untapped goldmine, ripe for exploitation. However, he grossly underestimated the fierce resistance he would encounter from the formidable duo of Bumpy Johnson and his mentor, Stephanie Sinclair. The powder keg of conflict ignited in 1931 when Schultz's henchmen began their aggressive incursion into Harlem's well-established numbers operations. This brazen move threatened to upend the delicate balance of power that had long existed in the neighborhood. Bumpy, still operating under the tutelage of Sinclair, found himself thrust into the role of Harlem's primary defender against this external threat. With unwavering determination and strategic acumen, he took up the mantle of protector for Harlem's homegrown criminal enterprises, ready to repel the invading forces at any cost. Bumpy's approach to this conflict was a masterclass in asymmetrical warfare. Recognizing the disparity in resources and manpower, he adopted a strategy that leveraged his intimate knowledge of Harlem's landscape and the loyalty of its residents. Bumpy orchestrated a series of lightning-fast raids on Schultz's operations, each one meticulously planned to inflict maximum damage with minimal risk. His men would materialize from the shadows, swiftly dismantle Schultz's equipment, and vanish into the labyrinthine streets of Harlem before any retaliation could be mounted. These guerrilla tactics weren't just about physical destruction. They were psychological warfare. Each successful raid eroded Schultz's confidence and sowed discord among his ranks. Bumpy's men exploited their deep-rooted connections within the community, using a vast network of informants to stay one step ahead of their adversaries. This local support proved invaluable, providing safe houses, escape routes, and a constant stream of intelligence that kept Bumpy's forces elusive and effective. Bumpy understood that this wasn't just about protecting a business, reflected Hubert Delaney, a longtime Harlem resident who lived through those tumultuous times. This was about preserving our community's autonomy, about showing that Harlem wouldn't bow to outside pressure. Bumpy stood as a bulwark against those who sought to exploit us, and he was willing to put everything on the line to keep Harlem in Harlem hands. As the conflict intensified, both factions found themselves locked in an escalating cycle of violence. Schultz, unaccustomed to such tenacious opposition, resorted to increasingly brutal tactics. He ordered widespread arson attacks on numbers houses and unleashed a reign of terror on Harlem's civilian population, hoping to break their will and force their compliance. However, these heavy-handed methods only served to galvanize the community's support for Bumpy, who was seen as their protector against outside aggression. In the face of this onslaught, Bumpy's resolve only hardened. He matched Schultz's brutality with a calculated ruthlessness of his own, targeting key members of Schultz's organization with surgical precision. Yet, even as the violence escalated, Bumpy never lost sight of his ultimate goal: the preservation of Harlem's independence and the protection of its people. This duality, a ruthless gangster who simultaneously acted as a community guardian, would become a defining aspect of Bumpy's complex legacy. The conflict between Bumpy Johnson and Dutch Schultz reached its boiling point during the sweltering summer of 1932. On a seemingly ordinary afternoon, as Bumpy strolled down the bustling 135th Street, the air suddenly erupted with the deafening crack of gunfire. Schultz's men, emboldened by their boss's ruthless ambition, had launched a brazen assassination attempt in broad daylight. Bullets whizzed past Bumpy, missing him by mere inches and sending pedestrians scrambling for cover. With his legendary quick thinking and street instincts, Bumpy managed to duck into a nearby alleyway, narrowly escaping what could have been a fatal encounter. Shaken but unharmed, Bumpy immediately went to ground, disappearing into the labyrinthine network of safe houses and hideouts he had meticulously cultivated throughout Harlem. For days, he remained out of sight, his absence fueling wild speculation and anxiety among both his allies and enemies. But Bumpy was far from idle during this period of seclusion. Instead, he was meticulously planning a counter-offensive that would shake the very foundations of Schultz's operation. That assassination attempt was a turning point for Bumpy, reflected Hubert Delaney, a longtime Harlem resident who had witnessed the evolution of the conflict. It was as if a switch had been flipped. He realized that playing it safe, sticking to defense, wasn't going to cut it anymore. Bumpy knew he had to hit back, and hit back hard, to show Schultz and everyone else that Harlem wasn't up for grabs. When Bumpy finally emerged from hiding, he unleashed a campaign of retaliation that was as swift as it was brutal. He had assembled an elite team of sharpshooters, men whose loyalty to Bumpy was matched only by their deadly accuracy with a firearm. This group, operating with military-like precision, began systematically targeting Schultz's top lieutenants and key operatives. In a series of coordinated strikes that left the New York underworld reeling, Bumpy's men eliminated several of Schultz's most trusted advisors and enforcers. Each successful hit sent shockwaves through Schultz's organization, sowing chaos and paranoia in its ranks. The message behind this bloody campaign was unmistakable. Harlem was the domain of Bumpy Johnson and Stephanie Sinclair, and they would defend it with unrelenting ferocity. As the body count rose and Schultz's operations in Harlem began to crumble, the balance of power in the neighborhood's criminal underworld shifted decisively. Bumpy's resolute stand against the invading forces had not only preserved his and Sinclair's control over Harlem, but had also elevated his status to that of a local legend. In the eyes of many Harlem residents, Bumpy had transformed from a mere gangster into a defender of the community, a man willing to put everything on the line to keep outside forces from exploiting their neighborhood. As the conflict with Schultz persisted, Bumpy came to a profound realization. His street savvy and local connections, while formidable, were insufficient to cement his position in the larger criminal landscape. With characteristic audacity and strategic foresight, he set his sights on an ambitious goal, forging a partnership with the Italian Mafia, specifically targeting Lucky Luciano, the undisputed titan of New York City's criminal underworld. This bold move was fraught with peril. The racial prejudices of the era cast a long shadow over the criminal world, with many Italian mobsters harboring deep-seated biases against African-American gangsters. Bumpy, however, was undeterred. He saw beyond these barriers, recognizing that in the high-stakes game of organized crime, mutual benefit could potentially trump racial animosity. With unwavering determination and a keen understanding of power dynamics, Bumpy resolved to prove his worth and carve out a place for himself at the table of criminal elites, regardless of the obstacles that stood in his way. After weeks of intense negotiations conducted through a network of trusted intermediaries, Bumpy finally secured the long-awaited face-to-face meeting with Lucky Luciano. The rendezvous was set in a cavernous, dimly lit warehouse on the gritty Lower East Side, a location carefully chosen for its neutrality, offering both men an equal footing on unfamiliar ground. As Bumpy stepped into the warehouse, the air thick with tension and the faint scent of cigar smoke, he was immediately struck by Luciano's commanding presence. The Italian crime boss, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, exuded an aura of power and confidence that seemed to fill the room. Luciano's piercing gaze swept over Bumpy, assessing him with the cold calculation of a seasoned predator. "So, you're the infamous Bumpy Johnson," Luciano drawled, a hint of amusement dancing in his eyes. "I've been hearing quite a bit about you and your little skirmish with Schultz. I must say, your tactics have been rather impressive. You've managed to ruffle more than a few feathers in our circles." Bumpy, a man who had stared down countless threats and faced death more times than he cared to remember, felt a momentary flutter of nerves. But he quickly steeled himself, drawing on the iron will that had carried him through the blood-soaked streets of Harlem. Meeting Luciano's gaze with unwavering determination, he replied, "I appreciate the acknowledgement, Mr. Luciano. However, I didn't come here to discuss past exploits. I'm here because I believe we have a unique opportunity before us, one that could prove immensely beneficial to both our interests." What followed was a grueling negotiation that stretched on for hours, a high-stakes chess match where every word, every gesture was carefully calculated. Both men, titans in their respective domains, probed and parried, testing each other's resolve and searching for any sign of weakness. Bumpy found himself walking a precarious tightrope, balancing his burning desire for power and independence against the cold, hard reality that Luciano's backing was the key to elevating his operation to unprecedented heights. As the discussion wore on, Bumpy's shrewd mind raced, weighing the potential risks and rewards of an alliance with the Italian Mafia. He knew that aligning with Luciano would open doors previously barred to him, providing access to resources and connections that could solidify his control over Harlem's underworld. Yet, he was acutely aware of the price such an alliance might demand: a degree of autonomy, a share of his hard-won territory, and the constant vigilance required to maintain his position in this new, expanded playing field. After a grueling negotiation that stretched into the early hours of the morning, Bumpy and Luciano finally reached a hard-won agreement. The terms were both a triumph and a compromise for Bumpy. He would retain his coveted position as the undisputed ruler of Harlem's criminal underworld, a testament to his formidable reputation and negotiating skills. However, this power came with strings attached. Bumpy would be required to pay a substantial regular tribute to the Mafia, a financial arrangement that would significantly impact his bottom line. Moreover, he would need to consult with Luciano's representatives on major decisions, a stipulation that would undoubtedly test Bumpy's independent nature and strategic autonomy. In exchange for these concessions, the Italian Mafia offered Bumpy a package of benefits that could potentially elevate his operation to unprecedented heights. They promised to provide him with additional muscle when needed, a valuable asset in the volatile world of organized crime. Legal counsel would be made available to him, offering a layer of protection against the ever-present threat of law enforcement. Perhaps most crucially, the Mafia's vast network of corrupt officials and influential figures would provide Bumpy with a degree of insulation from police scrutiny, allowing him to operate with greater freedom and reduced risk. As Bumpy clasped Luciano's hand in a firm handshake, sealing the deal with this gesture of mutual respect, a complex mixture of emotions coursed through him. There was undeniable relief. He had navigated this high-stakes negotiation successfully, emerging with his power largely intact and gaining powerful new allies. Yet, this relief was tempered by a gnawing sense of trepidation. Bumpy was acutely aware that he had secured this powerful alliance at the cost of some of his cherished autonomy. The weight of this new arrangement settled on his shoulders, a constant reminder of the delicate balance he would need to maintain moving forward. As Bumpy left the warehouse, stepping out into the pre-dawn chill of the New York streets, he knew that this agreement would fundamentally reshape the trajectory of his career. The coming years would put his legendary adaptability and strategic acumen to the ultimate test. He would need to navigate the complex web of alliances, rivalries, and power dynamics that defined the criminal underworld with even greater skill and finesse. The game had changed, the stakes had been raised, and Bumpy Johnson was determined to not just survive, but thrive in this new paradigm. As Bumpy Johnson's influence expanded throughout Harlem, his reputation underwent a fascinating transformation. He skillfully crafted an image that blended the ruthlessness of a hardened criminal with the compassion of a community advocate. This carefully cultivated persona, a gangster who possessed a keen social conscience, became increasingly prominent in the eyes of Harlem's residents. Bumpy's actions often reflected this duality, as he balanced his illicit activities with genuine efforts to support and uplift his community. This complex interplay between his criminal enterprises and his philanthropic endeavors would come to define Bumpy's legacy, creating a narrative that continues to intrigue and perplex historians and community members alike. The enigmatic figure of Bumpy Johnson, straddling the line between villain and benefactor, became deeply ingrained in the fabric of Harlem's cultural and social landscape. Bumpy Johnson, ever the astute strategist, recognized that true power in Harlem extended far beyond mere force and intimidation. He understood that to maintain his grip on the neighborhood, he needed to cultivate the unwavering support and loyalty of its residents. With this realization, Bumpy embarked on a calculated yet compassionate campaign, channeling his ill-gotten gains into a network of community support that would soon become legendary. Operating with characteristic discretion, Bumpy established an intricate web of informants and trusted lieutenants. These individuals were tasked with a mission that seemed at odds with their criminal affiliations: to scour the streets of Harlem, identifying families struggling to make ends meet. Once located, these families would become the beneficiaries of Bumpy's unorthodox philanthropy. Under the cover of night, his operatives would stealthily deliver much-needed aid: parcels of food, bundles of clothing, and envelopes stuffed with cash, leaving them on doorsteps like benevolent shadows. Edna Wilkins, a lifelong Harlem resident who experienced Bumpy's generosity firsthand, shared a vivid recollection. There was always an air of mystery about it. You'd hear a soft knock at the door, and by the time you opened it, Bumpy would be standing there, arms laden with bags of groceries, sometimes even an envelope of cash, tucked discreetly among the items. His eyes, usually so hard and calculating, would soften as he'd say, "I know times are tough, Mrs. Wilkins, but I want to make sure you and your little ones are taken care of." It was a surreal experience, watching this man, whose name was whispered in fear on street corners, transform into a guardian angel before my very eyes. The juxtaposition was striking. A notorious gangster, feared throughout the city, acting with the tenderness of a concerned neighbor. It left many of us in a state of moral confusion, grappling with the complexity of a man who could be both villain and savior in the same breath. Bumpy Johnson's commitment to supporting his community extended far beyond individual acts of charity. Recognizing the importance of economic empowerment, he strategically invested in local businesses throughout Harlem. With a keen eye for potential, Bumpy provided crucial financial support and guidance to struggling entrepreneurs, with a particular focus on African-American-owned enterprises. This calculated approach not only helped these businesses stay afloat, but also fostered growth and expansion, creating a ripple effect that stimulated Harlem's economy as a whole. The impact of Bumpy's investments was far-reaching. As local businesses flourished under his patronage, they created a multitude of job opportunities for Harlem residents. This influx of employment options provided a lifeline for many families, offering stable incomes and a path towards financial stability. Moreover, the success of these businesses contributed to a sense of pride and self-sufficiency within the community, challenging the narrative of economic disenfranchisement that had long plagued Harlem. Bumpy was a master strategist, both in his criminal enterprises and in his community efforts, explained Louis Greco, a former member of the Italian Mafia who had extensive dealings with Johnson. He understood that the key to maintaining his power in Harlem wasn't just about muscle and intimidation. It was about winning the hearts and minds of the people. By reinvesting his wealth back into the community, he wasn't just buying loyalty, he was cultivating a symbiotic relationship where his success became intertwined with the prosperity of Harlem itself. The dichotomy of Bumpy Johnson's character, a ruthless crime lord on one hand and a compassionate community benefactor on the other, left an indelible mark on Harlem's collective consciousness. This duality sparked intense debates and conflicting emotions among the neighborhood's residents, creating a complex tapestry of public opinion that persists to this day. For many, Bumpy represented a beacon of hope and resistance against the systemic oppression that had long suffocated Harlem's potential. They saw him as a Robin Hood figure, a man who dared to challenge the white-dominated power structures and redirected resources back into his community. His investments in local businesses and his support for struggling families were tangible proof of his commitment to Harlem's welfare, earning him a loyal following among those who benefited directly from his generosity. However, this admiration was far from universal. A significant portion of Harlem's population grappled with the moral implications of Bumpy's actions. They found themselves torn between gratitude for his community contributions and deep-seated unease about the violent and illegal means by which he acquired his wealth. The drug trade that formed a substantial part of his empire had devastating effects on countless lives, creating a painful contradiction between his philanthropic efforts and the very real harm caused by his criminal activities. Bumpy Johnson embodied the complexities and contradictions of Harlem during his era, reflected Dr. Evelyn Higgins, a renowned historian specializing in the African-American experience in Harlem. His life and legacy defy simple categorization. On one side of the ledger, we have a man who didn't hesitate to employ brutal violence to maintain his criminal empire, leaving a trail of broken lives in his wake. Yet, on the other side, we see someone who demonstrated genuine concern for his community's well-being, often going to great lengths to provide opportunities and support that were sorely lacking from official channels. This duality makes Bumpy a fascinating historical figure, one who forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about power, morality, and the complex dynamics of community leadership in the face of systemic oppression. Despite his formidable power and far-reaching influence, Bumpy Johnson found himself increasingly in the crosshairs of determined law enforcement agencies. As his criminal empire expanded its tentacles throughout Harlem and beyond, the efforts to dismantle his operations intensified, setting the stage for a high-stakes cat-and-mouse game that would captivate the nation. In the early 1950s, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, under the leadership of the indomitable J. Edgar Hoover, launched a comprehensive and relentless investigation into Bumpy's sprawling criminal network. Teams of seasoned agents, armed with cutting-edge surveillance technology and a network of informants, began meticulously piecing together a complex mosaic of evidence. Their goal was ambitious, yet clear: to finally bring down the enigmatic and elusive king of Harlem. The FBI's arsenal in this high-stakes battle was formidable. State-of-the-art wiretaps captured incriminating conversations, while a carefully cultivated network of informants provided invaluable insider information. This wealth of intelligence painted a damning picture of Bumpy's involvement in a wide array of illegal enterprises, from the intricacies of the numbers racket to the dark underbelly of drug trafficking operations that plagued the streets of Harlem. Bumpy renowned for his razor-sharp instincts and strategic acumen, was acutely aware of the gathering storm. For years, he had masterfully cultivated a web of allies and informants within the ranks of the New York Police Department, a network that had consistently allowed him to stay one step ahead of local law enforcement. However, the sheer magnitude of the federal investigation, coupled with the seemingly limitless resources at the FBI's disposal, presented Bumpy with an unprecedented challenge. The noose was tightening, and even the legendary godfather of Harlem found himself struggling to navigate the treacherous waters of federal scrutiny. The culmination of the FBI's painstaking investigation came in 1952, when federal agents executed a series of meticulously coordinated raids and arrests. These operations, carried out with military precision, targeted the very foundations of Bumpy's vast criminal empire. At the heart of this sweeping crackdown was a complex drug conspiracy case, aiming to implicate Bumpy as the mastermind behind an extensive heroin trafficking network that had spread its poisonous tendrils throughout Harlem and beyond. The ensuing trial was nothing short of a media sensation, capturing the attention of the entire nation. In the imposing halls of justice, two starkly contrasting narratives emerged. Federal prosecutors, armed with a mountain of evidence, painted a damning portrait of Bumpy Johnson. They characterized him as a ruthless and calculating criminal kingpin who had callously exploited the vulnerabilities of his own community, fueling a cycle of addiction and violence in his relentless pursuit of power and wealth. On the other side of the courtroom, Bumpy's defense team, comprised of some of the most skilled and high-profile attorneys in the country, mounted a fierce and impassioned counter-offensive. They sought to reframe the narrative, portraying Bumpy not as a criminal mastermind, but as a victim of systemic racial prejudice and a misunderstood champion of the downtrodden. Their arguments resonated with many in the African American community, who saw echoes of their own struggles against an often biased and oppressive system in Bumpy's legal battle. As the trial progressed, the courtroom became a battleground of conflicting testimonies, heated arguments, and dramatic revelations. The tension was palpable, with each day bringing new twists and turns that kept both the jury and the public on the edge of their seats. The entire proceedings took on the air of a high-stakes chess match, with prosecutors and defense attorneys alike employing every legal maneuver and rhetorical flourish at their disposal. In the end, however, the sheer weight of the evidence proved insurmountable for even Bumpy's formidable legal team to overcome. After weeks of intense deliberation, the jury emerged with their verdict, finding Bumpy Johnson guilty on multiple counts of drug conspiracy. The judge, reflecting the severity of the crimes and Bumpy's status as a major figure in organized crime, handed down a harsh sentence: 15 years in the federal penitentiary system, with the stipulation that the first decade of his incarceration would be served in the infamous confines of Alcatraz, the nation's most secure and notorious prison. As the gavel fell and the verdict was read, a palpable sense of shock rippled through the courtroom and beyond. The seemingly untouchable godfather of Harlem, a man who had outmaneuvered rivals and law enforcement alike for decades, was finally facing the full force of federal justice. It was a moment that would reshape the landscape of organized crime in New York City and mark the beginning of a new chapter in the already legendary life of Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson. As the imposing steel gates of Alcatraz slammed shut behind Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson, the legendary godfather of Harlem found himself thrust into a world far removed from the bustling streets he once ruled. The infamous island fortress, shrouded in fog and isolation, would become his home for the next decade. The deafening silence that permeated the prison grounds stood in stark contrast to the vibrant cacophony of Harlem's avenues, serving as a constant reminder of the freedom he had lost. The initial weeks of Bumpy's incarceration proved to be a grueling test of his resilience and adaptability. Accustomed to the relative autonomy and luxuries that his criminal empire had afforded him, he now faced the unforgiving routine and austere conditions of America's most notorious penitentiary. The rhythmic clanging of cell doors, the echoing footsteps of vigilant guards, and the suffocating monotony of daily life within Alcatraz's confines threatened to erode his indomitable spirit. In a rare moment of vulnerability, during a later interview, Bumpy reflected on this challenging period. Stepping into Alcatraz was like descending into the depths of a living nightmare. The isolation, the constant surveillance, the loss of control, it all conspired to break a man's will. But I knew that succumbing to despair wasn't an option. I had to summon every ounce of strength and determination I possessed to weather this storm, because allowing them to break me would mean betraying everything I had fought for in Harlem. As the days turned into weeks and months, Bumpy gradually acclimated to the harsh rhythms of life on the Rock. Drawing upon the street smarts and keen intellect that had propelled him to the top of Harlem's underworld, he began to navigate the complex social hierarchy of the prison. With the patience of a master strategist, Bumpy observed his fellow inmates, meticulously studying their behaviors, alliances, and power dynamics. This calculated approach allowed him to carve out a niche for himself within the prison ecosystem, eventually earning the respect and admiration of both inmates and guards alike. As we conclude this fascinating journey through the life of Bumpy Johnson, we're left with a complex portrait of a man who was both a criminal mastermind and a community benefactor. His story serves as a stark reminder of the intricate dynamics of power, justice, and survival in mid-20th century Harlem. We hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the life of the Godfather of Harlem. If you found this content engaging and informative, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more captivating historical narratives. Your support helps us continue bringing these important stories to light. We'd love to hear your thoughts on Bumpy Johnson's legacy. Do you see him as a villain, a hero, or something in between? Share your perspective in the comments below. And if you think others would find this story as intriguing as you did, please share this video with your friends and family. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in our next historical exploration.